So, good day, guys, and I'm here to continue my discussion about the lesson 3, collecting, marking, tagging, and preserving evidence. Um, in process, the investigation respond knowledge on proper action or done specific kinds of evidence found in scene of the crime. So, the proper method in collecting, marketing, and tagging and preserving evidence that must be observed that the following. First, collecting physical evidence. All the items are found in crime scene should be collected. So, the collect the collecting officer should not decide whether a certain items of relevant or irrelevant. Small piece of evidence also must have a given importance to collecting them is necessary. So it's very important to collecting those evidence that could help to solve a crime scene. For example, murder. Um, if a there have a many items that could define a murder scene. Um, there are the weapons that could collected as a big evidence. So next, blood. It is important in homicide, assault, robbery, and other cases where it may spill. Um, it is categorized in major group A, B, or O depending to condition of stain of receipt. It is very important to collect a blood as a evidence. You can define the DNA or any kinds of link what kinds of crime that could happen. So next, the collection of the liquid blood. Use a clean, disposable pint of dry dropper for each sample collected. Place the simple container, avoiding the airspace because the air will cause of blood to dry. If the amount of blood is minimal, the collection may best to made a placing and sample in a normal saline solution, 1 tablespoon of salt, and 1 quart of distilled water. Next is to refrigerate the samples in saline solution as soon as possible. Next is to do not mix areas where samples are collected. Above all, avoiding contaminate the samples by reusing collection tools. So next, collection of dry blood. On absorbent surface during entire object and cut out and stain areas bring a laboratory. On non-absorbent surface, scrape a sample and place the container of, or if possible submit the entire article. If the samples scrape from surface, also the portion of the surface where no blood present, the submit is separate container for control case some substance or surface causes difficulty in test. So, collection of the blood on clothing. Do not fold the cloth as it may destroy the stain pattern. Do not do not package while the stain is still wet. Allow the clothing dry and room before packaging. Do not expose the sunlight and high temperature as they may destroy the factor that could determine the blood typing. So next, hair. Hair may found ay hair this may be found anywhere in crime scene. It often found on the clothing of the victim of the suspect who have come a physical contact with each other. It can be very important as a evidence, especially in rape cases. In most cases, there are rarely enough to sample presented for a positive identification of individual. However, it can be determined the hair of the animal human whether hair dried or bleached. If the hair from a head of the body as well as a racial origin of the hair. So, collection of hair. Take sample of the head from the top of the back of each side of the head. Take the combing, pulling, and cutting close of it. Take at least dozen hair from each location. Each these samples should be collected in separate container and proper labeled. And then identify the hair carefully as location found. Do not mix hair found to several locations. Place hair to fold paper and pull it envelope, glass, vial, and seal. Do not tape on hair the object as well as alter hair to destroy any debris adhering to it. So next is the finger scraping. Fingernail scraping. In case their physical have made fingernail scraping should be obtained. So the um the rape case or assault case as a good example of the case where fingernail scraping may important. Items found in under the fingernails includes the fiber, hair, skin, which may be type of a blood group. So, the collection of the fingernail, clean of the fingernail with a clean file. Place the scraping from each finger on already labeled paper notation of the finger it came from. Place the scraping from each finger in separate envelope or glass vial. Fingernail scraping should be obtained from both of the victim and the suspect. And the subject had to contaminate the blood. Note this to container. So next is fiber. Fiber is the excellent tracing evidence when the clothing across the contamination takes place. These are important of evidence in robbery, hit and run cases. The fiber may be found in the clothing, snag, or projections, and also even embedded with a vehicle paint. So, the examination of the fiber is determined whether in the natural synthetic materials or the color of the dye used. It may be a physical match if the fragment was torn to clothing. Threads may be a examination to determine the twist of the number of the strand of the cloth wave. So, next is the collection of the fiber. Treat a package of the fiber same manner as hair, to be streamed carefully, or the across of contaminate during the collection process. The collection of the clothing would consider to be a source of fiber. Do not shake the item and dislodge the fiber. So next, glass. It can important evidence in robbery and hit and run cases. Glass is usually examined to determine both evidence samples as known a standard has same physical properties and trace the impurities. In additional, um, the examination can be determined from which side and force was applied. Glass broken by fire show a different patterns because the breaking is include um, the expansion of the glass. The physical match of the glass from a crime scene found in a suspect possession and a good possibility. So, next is the collection of the glass. The collection from is broken glass at the crime scene, package them individually in the glass vial and envelope. Hit and run cases collect all broken glasses to ensure the possibility of a physical match should be fragments to be found on the suspect vehicle. Next is firearm. Firearm, bullet, shotgun shell, shotgun pellet, and other explosive residue and the gunpowder patterns can provide the vital evidence and specific answer of possible question in cases. Um, um, it is very important that the collect this firearm. It is a strong evidence that um, a crime, for example, murder or assault. At it is very important to determine what kinds of the the firearm that could trace what are the owner of that firearms. So let's proceed to collection of the firearm. Firearm must be handled carefully in only safety measures to avoid disturbing evidence may provided. It must be proper marked the later identification. Never insert the anything barrels that damage identifying characteristics and dislodge materials which inside the barrel. Pick up the weapons and the trigger guard and check the grip that disturb any fingerprint. So unload the wipe and clean and weapon. When the unloading carefully the records and the location of the fired, unfired, the mixed and fired cartridge. Record the serial number of description of the firearms. Firearms is the no serial number should be marked as initial that receiver is underside of the barrel. So never use X or other individual to type a marking. Do not mark a weapon easily remove part such as stock or grip. Use a discretion so as not disfigure the weapon. So next, don'ts in collection of the firearm. Never submit up unload the laboratory unless delivered in person. Never clean the bore, chamber, cylinder, submitting firearms, and never attempt to fire a gun before the examine in laboratory. So, bawal yun na siya. So never pick up a weapon placing a pencil or object end of the barrel. Record the serial number, make a model chamber of the weapon to mark some inauspicious manner or distract with the value of the sending to laboratory. Place a weapon, a strong of the wooden box, well packaged and prevent shifting or the gun transit. The rifles or shotguns should be not taken apart. If the blood is anything materials which pertain the investigation of the presence of the gun, place can clean the paper around the gun and seal it. Tape up prevents movements or the gun and loss of the simple during shipments. So next is never contaminate a gun examination latent of fingerprint. So next is the bullet. It can provide the information about makes a type of ammunition of the weapons that the bullet was fired and whether or not a fired specific weapons provide as a weapons available test purposes. Um, the collection of the bullet is handle the bullet so as not dislodge the extraneous material or damage marking. If the bullet lodged in wounds similar in materials, cut out the lesson and bring it a laboratory. At autopsies request to use hand rubbering trip force to minimize the possibility damage to the bullet. The wrap each bullet separately to tissues, cotton, prevent damage, and place a container. So next, cart- cartridge case. It is must provide the information as to type the weapon used to immune or whether or not the case fired specific weapons if the weapons available to fire testing. So to handle a cartridge case so not add any scratch or marks. Wrap each one separate or prevent damage. Be sure the note of specific location in which each was found. So next, um, seminal stain. It is often always to on clothing, blanket, and sheet. It also a biological evidence that like a blood must be collected properly and maintain integrity. These are some cases and it is a, for example, a rape cases. You should a collect that semen semen stain that could collect as a a evidence. So next, the collection of the seminal stain. Do not allow any stains to dry. Wrap in the paper. Package evidence in a paper bag. Do not use a plastic bags. For sex for sex offense case, the victim should always to examine by a physician. Labeled all garments should undershort, panties, and other exhibit and link package of each garment separately. If damp, allow fabric to dry com- completely before packaging. Handle the fabrics as a little as possible. So next is to marking of physical evidence. As evidence collect indeed indeed in individually marked as initial to investigator. Um, the marking tools, it depends upon is nature of evidence that if hard to objects such a materials, the initial or engraved by a used sharp pointed steel called stylus. The general rule of tools or object as physical evidence. Never mark with initial revolving officer. Um, Never use X as a markings. Never any serial record any serial number if applicable when the distinctive mark of the objects without damage. Always mark the container with a objects to place even the object itself already marked. When the tags are used, may corresponding entry in the tags attach it serious securely to the object. So next is the marking of firearm related evidence. First, revolver. It must be marked separately in the barrel, frame, butt, cylinder, and shock. And tape should be put around the bore. The flame of the gun is signature of the investigator. Next is the pistols. It must mark on the barrel, frame, butt, magazine, and shock. Um, it tape must be put around around with a signature to avoid changing part of a gun to affect result of laboratory examination. So next is the rifle. Should be marked of the barrel, frame, magazine, bolt, or slide. All magazine and accessories shall be marked. Fired empty shell or misfired cartridge. It must be marked near of the mouth of fire empty shell, not only the body, perpetual surface or base. So next, the bullet, slugs, balls, pellet. A bullet slugs mark as a or give a nose as well as the base is on the nature bearing surface. Note all the evidence could be marked due of physical nature, blood, semen, hair, fiber, and the like. Hence, they should be a proper stored tagging and labeled. Marking of evidence most likely applicable only the objects or tools found in the crime scene. So next, tagging evidence. Tagging evidence, all the evidence which by other nature could be not be marked on each surface or the blood, hair, fiber, and like properly stored in appropriate container. After which the container is I put with a tag, tagging physical evidence being done to use a card where in initials the investigator date and time of collect specific case and other information are written. So, next is the preservation of the tool mark. Whether the possible submit and whole object contain a mark in laboratory instead to removing a containing a mark. Although this photograph will known is sufficient to allow the laboratory perform a tool mark compression with a tool with the assist the laboratory to determine how to make a rest of marks can be more easily made. So, cast of the tool mark can be made of the person who had considerable experience in this work. Poor cast useless for compression purposes and some marks will be damaged if improper method are used. So, the pack of the object contain the tool mark so that no alteration or damage will occur during shipment. Um, the smell of the object should be wrapped with a clean paper or place of a envelope or boxes. Um, while the importance are the larger objects can be protected with a paper, whole large objects can be packed of the cartons or crates of delivered in person. Next is the preservation of the controlled substance in medical preparation. Each samples of materials recovered should be placed in a paper container with can be sealed and marked. So be sure be sure that to properly seal as lost a material, particularly in the case of marijuana, can leak and spill. So next, the preservation of question document. Under the circumstance, should be either question the document or explore or mark the space or altered. No new fold should be made nor should be marked or notes a place such a materials or the personal marks for identification purposes. It should be made a small possible on the back or other areas of the documents or where is no handwriting or typewriting is presented. So next, whatever possible, all documents should be protect placing them to cellophane, plastic envelopes. So next is shipment of evidence. Question of the documents may be submitted personally or left in previous described locker of laboratory entrance. Such evidence sent in laboratory by mail but be sent by clarify or registered mail. Therefore, the massive amount of the material, it can be sent some other way, but the package must be always be sealed. So next, documents, other question documents evidence, to restoration of the dispatchment uttered, obturated, or erased writing. Erased writing. Identification of the embossed to indented writing or type. Um, Writing of type. So, um, identification of the embossed indent writing or typing. Um, Compression of the paper, commercially printed materials such as check, coupons, receipt, and others. The physical matching of the cut of third of the paper's various type. The problems relating into inks. So next, the preservation of latent fingerprint. The primary precaution of all cases is prevention of adding fingerprints to evidence to destroy those already present. So it must fingerprints submit will be paper, glass, metal, or other smooth surface objects. It it articles contain latent must be picked up or touched of the little possible of the only areas that could likely contain identifications and identifiable latent such as rough surface. So next is while the gloves handkerchief may use to pick such exhibits and any necessary contacts should be avoided. Using cloth with a frequently wipe off smell of the print or generally print with weight of a taken. So latent prints, glass, metal articles, and firearms should be a place a wood heavy cardboard and fastened down with a string prevent shifting and contacts with other object with transit. Transit. Where is such evidence is wooden pegs to move a desired support exhibit um, it and keep them from moving. The bottles glasses may place to vertically must the board of the place bottom of the box. The base of the bottle of or the glass either can be surrounded with the nail hold in place in the top of either inserted through whole piece of the cardboard or held in position with a wooden board or nailed container lid. So next is the excuse, excuse me. Paper of document containing latent prints should be placed individual of envelope. Manila envelope. Such container can be sandwiched between a two sheets or shipboards to wrap a place of the box for trailing. So there are three types of fingerprint that should found in crime scene. Latent fingerprints. It made of sweat and oil the skin surface. This type of fingerprints is invisible into the naked eye, or it requires additional position order to see. This processing include the basic powder techniques to use of a chemicals. So next is the patent fingerprint. Can be made of blood, grease, ink, or dirt. This type of fingerprint easily visible of the human eye. So easy lang siya, makita lang na siya. Unlike sa latent fingerprint, kay dili kay siya visible sa atong naked eye. So, plastic fingerprint are three-dimensional impression can be made of pressing your fingerprint to fresh paint, wax, soap, and tire. Like pen and fingerprint, the plastic fingerprint easily seen of the human eye and do not require additional processing to visible purposes. So, same lang sila sa patent fingerprint na kuan na siya, visible siya sa kuan, human eye. So,